Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats. While people just try to make a living here, gangs seem to have the upper hand. Police statistics show the area has the third highest prevalence of illegal firearms in the country. In 2020, it recorded 115 murders. The last thing Janet Swart wanted was for her grandson, who lived with her, and 3 other grandchildren to join the statistics. Tamir Mitchell loved to dance. He was the apple of her eye.
Tamir was like my baby boy in the house, and everybody just say that I spoiled him because I love him.
On the 25th of February this year, 13-year-old Tamir Mitchell was standing here on Cadillac Street, Beacon Valley at around 8:30 at night when a car approached from that direction, apparently a white Chevrolet. It drew up and a volley of shots rang out.
And people shout, but it's Tamir laying there. When I got there, his eye was shot out. I couldn't handle seeing him like that. It was horrible.
You were shot many times.
He was shot 23 times.
Further up the road lived 18-year-old Morgan Munich. His mother Melanie said that he lived for soccer and was loved by his peers. What did he dream of doing with his life?
He wanted to be a professional soccer player.
Professional soccer player. She also heard distant gunfire that night. The gangsters continued along Cadillac Street and just a few hundred meters away opened fire again, this time claiming the life of young Morgan Munich, an only child. She found her son lying on the street, mortally wounded.
There was a little heartbeat, a little breath, so it's almost like he was just waiting for us to come.
Did you manage to say goodbye?
The last thing that I can remember, that the tears was rolling down his face. It's almost like he was saying goodbye to me.
Several other children were hit by bullets, but they are recovering. Just 2 days later, on the 27th of February, a Saturday morning, a car stopped over there. 3 gangsters got out and walked across this field and randomly opened fire on a group of neighbors sitting outside this house in 𝗀𝗃𝗃. 4 people died. Soon after these killings, the Western Cape Provincial Minister of Community Safety, Albert Fritz, visited the bereaved families. His sources said these could be revenge killings.
Remember when the alleged gangster was killed in Kraaifontein, Scottsville, which is another hot spot. Kraaifontein is a hot spot. 2 policemen were killed there last week. So when that happened, it seems as if they just came this side into Mitchell's Plain and randomly shot into the territory of another gang.
The motives for these apparently random killings have not been established, but Mitchell's Plain anti-gang activist Lynn Phillips knows how gangs operate.
It's all because of drug turf. It's all because of trying to initiate young people into gangs, and they need to showcase their worth to the gangs leaders in order for them to become part of the gangs.
According to Phillips, there are over 20 gangs operating in Mitchell's Plain and its suburbs. All these mothers have lost children to gang violence. Phillips started this group some years ago to provide mutual support and make their voices heard at court, where they demand that gangsters be denied bail. Lorraine Lawrence joined after her son paid the ultimate price for not joining a gang.
He was a very loving person. Whenever he see everyone in the road, he would always greet them, hug them, and ask them, "How are you?"
Brandon had a good job and was set for a bright future. Lawrence said that gangsters were envious of him and tried to force him to join the gang. He refused. And in April 2020, they assaulted him. He didn't lay charges.
He said, "Mommy, no. If I go lay charges, they will probably kill me."
3 months later, he was ambushed and killed on the street.
I just took the blanket that was on him. I took it off And I wanted to make sure if it's my son that was laying there. And I saw him just laying there. I couldn't even cry.
How many times was he shot?
He was shot 14 times.
14.
14 times he was shot.
In a tragic twist of fate, Brandon died on the same day his father had 23 years ago. He had been a gangster and was murdered for trying to leave the gang. In 2018, to much acclaim, the police's anti-gang unit was launched in Cape Town. In 2019, we joined them on a raid as they implemented their mission to crack down on gangsters and their illicit economies. In the first month of operation, they arrested 120 suspects. 35 of those were gang leaders. Phillips felt the unit was making inroads.
There was this fear from gangsters that there is a unit that really looked after the community and that they feared that unit at the time. Today, we don't see them any longer.
Sources say it was the murder of the unit's top investigator, Lieutenant Colonel 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀, last September that sparked the anti-gang unit's diminishing presence in Mitchell's Plain. Now it mostly uses its members to provide security for fellow police members.
A lot of us haven't seen them, but it would be good to get them back.
Sources say that patrols and raids are few and far between. The SANDF, also deployed to stem the tide of gangsterism, has left the Cape Flats. The police declined an interview, but in response to our questions, they replied that operational deployments by the anti-gang unit continue as guided by the crime pattern analysis, and that operations on an ongoing basis are conducted throughout the province. In the last 5 months, the Mitchell's Plain police have confiscated 29 illegal firearms and arrested 17 people. The Western Cape provincial government has adopted a safety plan which aims to halve the murder rate in the province in the next 10 years through law enforcement and violence prevention interventions, which hinges on community involvement.
Civil society must also get organized. Civil society must also form into neighborhood watches, and neighborhood watches mustn't become the domain of a few. It must become the representatives and people joining of all people.
In recent weeks, members of a volunteer group in Mitchell's Plain started training with a private community response unit from Somerset West that was founded by a man called Neil de Beer, formerly involved in apartheid security police. De Beer then became an ANC spy. He now has political ambitions and has started the United Independent Movement. His home in Somerset West is not far from Mitchell's Plain.
There's a borderline between vigilantism and community protection. And I think it was time for me to get up in my local informal settlement and my community in the Helderberg to say, enough of crime. Let's make our people safe. Huh? Oh. Let's go, guys. Go.
De Beer's community response unit patrols on their own and have provided backup to police operations in the township of Lwandle in Somerset West. The members come from the community. To date, they've undertaken 188 night operations and claim a success rate of a 72% drop in crime. So are you thinking of taking that formula to Mitchell's Plain?
I'm not thinking, I am. It's time that we also spread the winning concept of a community-based reaction unit.
These Mitchell's Plain men, fed up with gangs, are eager to replicate the unit's winning formula back home. In the meantime, Janet is struggling to get over the loss of Tamir. Hundreds of grieving community members attended his funeral.
I'm still see him coming in. I'm still wait for him. I still forgot and I buy stuff that I must buy for him because I keep on forgot that he's not here with us anymore.
Melanie is devastated, really struggling to cope.
He was in my life for 18 years and I can't just put that aside.
And Lorraine still can't believe that her son is gone. Tragically, for now, this is the reality of life in Mitchell's Plain.